Join us at CE on the Beach, June 26th to 28th, 2025, at the stunning Westin Grand Cayman Resort and Spa. This is the ultimate destination event for dentists, teams, coaches, and speakers. Save your spot now and get $150 off with promo code KHENRY. Visit ceonthebeach.com to register today.
Hey everyone, welcome back into another edition of the Dental Assistant Nation podcast. Happy 2025. So glad to be in the new year with all of you. And we've got a great episode today because we're going to help you be your best self in 2025. And I'm excited today to have on a pair of colleagues that are going to help us answer those questions. I'm going to start off by saying hello to Dr. Laura Schwindt. Dr. Schwindt, how are you today?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for having us and excited to be here.
I am thrilled to have you on, as I'm thrilled to have on Dr. Karen Tindall. Dr. Tindall, how are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. And excited to be here sharing some tips and everything for this new year. So we're looking forward to our chat.
Yeah, I know our assistants are pumped to hear this, and I'll be honest, I'm excited to hear what you all have to say as well. But before we dive into the good stuff, let's make sure our audience knows a little bit about you. So Dr. Tindall, would you mind just introducing yourself to our audience?
Yeah, super. Well, thank you very much for that. So you'll be able to tell, first of all, from my accent, I'm not a native to the United States. I have been here almost 9 years now, and originally from England. I was an orthodontist over there before moving to the United States here, where I no longer practice clinical dentistry, but I am privileged and love my role as a professional life coach and my partnership with Dr. Laura Schwindt in the Mint Door.
Absolutely. Well, and that's a great tee up for you, Dr. Schwindt. Would love a little bit more about you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Yeah, I was a longtime dentist, practiced for over 2 decades, and during that time went through burnout. That was a major event for me, and hired a life coach during that time, who I credit with saving my life. And so when I decided to retire and sell my practice, there was a piece of me that knew that that was something I wanted to give back to my profession, was how she supported me during those dark times. And so I pursued becoming a professional life coach, met Karen, and yeah, the rest is history. We became friends first, which is our motto, friends first, business partners second.
Love that. I think that is fantastic. And I also love you mentioned the Mint Door podcast. I was just on with you as a guest and excited to share that with the Dental Assistant Nation audience as well. But, you know, one of the things that we talked about were those breaks during the day and how important that is for dental assistants. And now as we're in the new year, Dr. Schwindt, I'm just going to ask you a question. How do we make sure as that dental assistant, if we feel like we're starting to approach burnout, if we're starting to approach things that are bothering us, what do we need to do to talk to the dentist to raise those concerns while keeping the business flow in mind as well?
Well, I think it's important to recognize that you are at your best. You can perform at your best when you've rested at your best. And that those two things go hand in hand. And so it should never be a luxury to take breaks during the day. That should be in preparation for giving your best. And so I think this is something that you want to show up as the best version of yourself at work. Having that conversation with your dentist and saying, hey, look, I am a better assistant when I get a chance to recharge after patients, especially some of those challenging patients. You know, we need a minute to gather ourselves, to take that bio break, like you said. I love that term, that bio break, but a moment to breathe, a moment to stretch, a moment to kind of shake off the energy of that appointment so that we can bring our best energy to the next appointment. And so I think if you approach that conversation with your dentist, that this is something that's really important to me because I want to be my best for every patient of the day, not just the first patient of the day.
Absolutely. You know, if I'm that 7 a.m. patient, that's one thing, but those 3 p.m. patients need just as much attention and love as much as those 7 a.m.ers do. Dr. Tindall, before we came on, you had mentioned that you had just finished up a coaching call with a dental assistant. What are some of the concerns that you hear from assistants as we head into the new year, and how are you helping address some of those concerns?
Yeah. We talk to a lot of assistants, and we really enjoy the time that we spend getting to work with assistants because we know that we can really help them make a difference in their lives and do some things that they can implement almost immediately. And I think assistants are really tied to the schedule, and the schedule is out of their control.
Yeah.
And they are merely following along with that schedule. They're caught up on a big wave, basically, for that whole day that they just keep on going. And it's finding ways that they can work with the schedule to make things easier for them. An example that I'll share is I remember an assistant who said to me that she didn't drink water during the day because if she did drink water, she would need to take a trip to the bathroom. And she didn't have time to take a trip to the bathroom. And that rings alarm bells for all sorts of reasons if somebody's going to be doing that. But how assistants can maximize their day to be able to feel, yes, I need to drink water. It's going to be okay to keep hydrating myself. But also those things as well that, where do I keep that water? Like, that's what I've heard as well, that, okay, it may be fine to say, let's drink water during the day, but I can't have it out on the surface in the room that I'm working with because of all the regulations that we can't do that. Where are we going to keep the water that's going to make it easy for you to get to drink that? So I think that's the thing that I hear most is the schedule is so busy. And then on top of that, layered on top of that, is the interaction with all other members of the team. Like, you're passionate about communication, and I think this is where it really ties in, is that it is a team approach. And I think sometimes assistants feel like they're left out of that communication, or they're the last one to know. So working with people on how they can have calm, stress-free days within their practices, but also relationships with other people.
Yeah, because we know the relationship sometimes brings the stress, to be honest with you. The schedule may be perfect and everything else, but it may be those people that we work with. Our last podcast was with Michelle Lasky, who talked about the importance of front-back communication. And whenever I hear you talk about the schedule, it makes me think, and Dr. Schwindt, Dr. Tindall, would love for both of you all to comment on this. Is it something, we talked about the importance of talking to the doctor, do we have a conversation about the schedule, maybe with the front office or whoever it is that's actually putting that schedule together, to make sure that we don't hit that burnout stage and we can get a drink of water sometime along the way?
If I can just share one success story. There's a practice that we've worked with for a while, and hearing now from an assistant this week that they had assistant meeting with the leadership team in the practice, and they put into place and were reminded again that self-care is really important for their team. So when they have a moment to be able to do that, they need to prioritize it. And this is a practice that we've been working with on the topic of well-being for a while. And just to know that that message is being heard, being listened, and implemented at all levels really made a difference to these people, to know that not only they know that they have to do it, but they also have permission. But that communication needs to be both ways. So if the assistant is taking 5 minutes, let the front desk know that you're taking 5 minutes, because the front desk will be chasing you if you're not, because they've got the patient sat waiting. So that's where that whole, practice communication piece comes in, to keep it harmonious. That, and the front desk, they need their 5 minutes too.
Oh,
So
sure. Absolutely.
yeah, it works
We all
both
do,
ways.
right?
Yeah, it works both
we
ways.
do.
Yeah, I think that's so important, because, and just being honest then with that communication with our patients as well. Letting our patients know that we're going to get you back, but we may be about 5 minutes because your team right now is cleaning up the room, taking their bathroom break, getting a drink of water, so they're at their best for you. And, it's sort of like the analogy of when you go to the airport and your flight is delayed. If no one tells you an update on your flight, you get anxious, you get irritated. But if they update you and say, oh, now we know this, and it'll be about another 10 minutes, then you calm down. And that's the same, I think, for a patient in the waiting room, And so that communication back and forth, and if everybody just agrees, like this practice that we've been working with, that these breaks are important. Your self-care during the day is important.
And I think the safety aspect is important as well, because not only, like you said, if I'm sitting at the airport and they say, hey, we're fixing something on the plane before we can take off, I'm okay with that. I really am. I would rather be safe. And I think not only do we need to make sure that, all the instruments are processed, everything is safe for that patient, but like you said, the dental assistant has the best mindset to listen to that patient and be on top of his or her game during the clinical part of that visit as well, and how important that is. So I'm curious, both of you, is it okay to say, I need 5 minutes? I mean, dumb question, but I think our audience needs to hear this answer. Is it okay to say that?
I think 100%. And I think it's important from the person receiving that, whoever's on the receiving end of that, to remember that sometimes you need 5 minutes too. So that when somebody does say, I need 5 minutes, that you can come from a place of compassion and empathy and be like, I gotcha. It's like that teamwork piece. Like, we're all here to make the team function together perfectly. And we can't do that if we're in our own silos and not respecting other people's needs.
Yeah, I think it's a great reminder, and there's a concept that if we could introduce to your audience that we love, which is called oscillation. And this is where for every 90 to 100 minutes you spend at the top of an oscillation curve, that you're at the top of this frequency wave, you're working at high intensity. To be able to maintain that same high intensity for the next patient, for the next time you reach the peak of that wave, you have to go down to the bottom to reset, to re-energize. And it may be, the drink of water. It may be 2 minutes of looking out at the horizon. It may be, mindfully washing your hands and thinking about how the water feels as you're doing that, or rubbing some hand lotion in after you've finished. But these moments, it can be as small as 3 minutes as well for it to be effective, really make a difference. So as a dental assistant, if you're modeling that, saying, I really need 5 minutes, people will pick up and will watch you. And I think especially as younger assistants come into the profession, those of us who have been there for longer, model this, it's going to become a default setting for the way these people work. To be like, yes, a 3 minute break, a 5 minute break, whatever, is what we need and is what is expected in between patients, rather than it being abnormal to do that.
So I love the concept of the oscillation, and I'm curious because, again, the high intensity, but then when you're down here and you're taking that break, you mentioned the mindfulness of feeling the water. What do they need to do when they're in that lower space and getting ready to ramp back up? What's the key to actually maximizing the rest during that moment when you're in the low curve?
The key is whatever you were doing, it's sort of the opposite. So let's take a front desk person, for instance. They sit a lot. And so an oscillation break for them might be getting up and walking around. But the key here is a lot of what we do with high intensity, it's not just physical, but in the dental office, it's mental. And our eyes, I'm human too, so I'm not perfect, but we take a break with this. And unfortunately, all this does is more high intensity. It shakes up our brain. It causes us to look at a small area and use our eyes. It actually causes us to hunch over, which doesn't open up our back and our shoulders and our muscles. And so just thinking about the fact that giving your brain and your eyes and your muscles that break that they need. And so, like Karen said, looking at the horizon, looking at something far away instead of close and small, stretching, taking a drink of water, getting a breath of fresh air. Doing a mindless task or a random act of kindness is a beautiful way too. Mm-hmm. But really thinking of the fact that whatever you were just doing was highly technical, mentally, emotionally, and physically, and then balancing that out with something that's not highly technical.
Well, it's funny you mentioned looking at this, because we're focused on this small cavity, the oral cavity, all day long, and then what do? We look at something very small as well. So I think that is a great reminder. I know there's so much that we could get into with how to be your best self in 2025, and I know we've scratched the surface. And that's why I want to make sure our audience learns, how can they reach out to you? How can they ask more questions? How can they, if they want to take a little deeper dive into some of the things that you all have mentioned, what's a good way to reach out to you both?
The best way to find us, we have our website, which is themintdoor.net. And you can find us on there. And one thing that I would really encourage people to do is we have a completely no obligation, and this is a pun on the word the mint door. Remember the mint door? We have an experiment, and it's an oscillation experiment. So if you click on the link, we will send you all the resources that you will need to conduct an oscillation experiment in your dental practice so that you will reap the rewards and notice the difference of how you feel, the increased productivity and all the good things that go with oscillating for yourselves, because we want people to feel the effect of this rather than us just talking about it. So there's a link there to the experiment on our website. We love just talking to people and just reaching out. And you can also find us on Instagram on @the_Mint_Door_Club as well.
That's great. And honestly, I've enjoyed having you all on. I've enjoyed making sure, again, that I reach through your audience as well with that message for dental assistants. So thank you for having me on your podcast. And we're going to put all those links in the show notes. And I've enjoyed the time so much. Thank you both.
Thank you so much for having us on. And thanks for being on our podcast, too. We can't wait to produce that one.
That's going to be great.
Yeah. So much gratitude always round on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a great way to start off 2025. I think the focus for dental assistants should be how to not only you have a better day, but to make sure that that day extends to whenever you get home. And that you're feeling your best whenever you walk through your front door, to be with your family, to be with your loved ones, to be with your pet, whatever it might be whenever you get home. To be your best is such an important thing, and that's what we're focused on here at the Dental Assistant Nation podcast. Until next time, it's Kevin Henry, host of the Dental Assistant Nation podcast, signing off, and as always, wishing you nothing but success ahead.